Hi, I'm Doug Ross, editorial page editor at the Times. We're here for an endorsement interview with the Democratic candidates for Lake County Sheriff. Let me introduce them. Starting from my right, we have Richard Ligon, Oscar Martinez, John Buncich. Also here with us are editorial board members Bill Nangle, executive editor, Robert Blaskowitz, assistant managing editor, and Dennis Rittenmeyer, who is executive director of One Region. I'm Doug Ross, editorial page editor. Let's begin with a question of why are you seeking this office, and what makes you a better choice than your opponent? John, let's start with you.
Well, again, this is my third term as sheriff. I served 2 terms during the 90s, 95 through 2002, and came back to the office in 2011, inherited a lot of problems. First of all, the jail, Department of Justice settlement agreement that placed this county in a lot of financial debt. Secondly, the 911 consolidation that had to be accomplished, that had to be in place by January 1 of 15. However, the law was passed in 2008, and for 3 years nothing was done. And then coupled with those 2 issues, upon taking office, corruption, finding that weapons were missing from the armory, and then working with the federal authorities, finding that there were 3 officers, unfortunately, that were indicted and convicted on federal charges of gun trafficking. So these were issues that we had to face from the get-go, and it's just been an ongoing situation. The Sheriff's Department has a huge budget, second largest budget in county government, and it's just it's a huge undertaking. It's a more difficult job than it ever was before, than when I was sheriff before. So we have a job to continue to finish, and that's the reason I want to seek re-election.
Okay, Oscar, how about you?
Well, I've been on the police department for 21 years. As people ask, why do you want to run for sheriff? What will you do differently? And one of the things that I've always said is that I will lead by example. I would not lead from behind a desk. And it's not just a catchphrase. I'm literally going to be out there with the men and women of law enforcement. And they will respect me as a law enforcement official, not as a politician. I will bring innovation and new ideas to the Sheriff's Department and bring a progressive, modern police department with technology and technique. One of those things is finger recognition technology that our officers can have out there on the road to identify people that they come in contact with. Social media, where we can use that to connect with the people of Lake County and also get information from them. It's a better way of communicating with the people of Lake County and the Sheriff's Department. I talked about this in the last election when I ran for sheriff, is text alerts, which we're not doing. The state police since then has jumped on that technology, where people who subscribe for it will get information from the Sheriff's Department countywide of any natural disaster, any road closures, any armed robberies, stolen vehicles. So they're aware of what's going on in their surroundings, in their community, and they're also an extra eyes for law enforcement that they can call in. Cyber unit. We don't have a cyber unit to investigate any cyber crimes in reference to identity theft, cyber crimes, cyber bullying. That's becoming a big problem right now. You're having a lot of kids commit suicide, dropping out of school because of cyber bullying. Just because you have on the Sheriff's webpage of the Sheriff's Department a link to information about cyberbullying is not a cyber unit to investigate those type of crimes. And most importantly is community outreach. I will hold quarterly town hall meetings with the community so I get feedback, questions and answers of what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right. And most importantly is outreach to our youth, is holding and having a youth police academy and mentoring program, especially for kids that are at high risk, and remove politics from the Sheriff's Department.
Yes, sir. I feel my experience, my education has really trained me and taught me how to deal with public and public safety. I have a master's degree from Valparaiso University in criminal justice. I've attended numerous military and law enforcement classes in schools. I'm a retired military colonel. I've commanded at every single level of the military, has up to a division. My last assignment was a brigade commander where I commanded 1,700 soldiers and leaders, and 900 of those were deployed. Each one were different entities, such as, like with the sheriff department, you have the jail, you have the other different departments. We have to not necessarily, we have to lead by example, there's no doubt about that, but you have to have and hire people in qualified positions and make sure that all these efforts are coordinated. Also, I'm a retired federal agent where I worked major crimes in Detroit, Chicago, both the south side and west side. I've worked in Indianapolis, and last assignment I was a team leader. I supervised the whole northern district of Indiana. I'm a deacon at my church, which definitely helps me to make sure that I'm communicating with the community. I must get out. We must do an outreach with them. I've coached Pop Warner football in the city of Gary for over 40 years. And it all started with myself and 2 other police officers. We joined hands and we said, how can we prevent crime in our community? What can we do? And I've been doing it ever since, and it's been such a reward because we did a study at one period where we took for 5 years, and out of the 5 years, only 1 individual had been sentenced to prison. But not only that, if we really look at our community, there's a lot going on with the expressways, the rail. We forget about, and we don't necessarily forget about it, but we aren't in tune with how the military will help us to assist us. And that's why I worked hard to bring a Homeland Security unit to the airport. And it's not being utilized now. I'm sure if we had a major disaster or some type of terrorist act, we would have their support. But right now we're not working, we don't know their capabilities. Also, getting along with other law enforcement agencies. And that's so important because a lot of times if you're not communicating with other law enforcement agencies on a regular basis, you forget that you're stepping on some toes if you don't. And it creates animosity. It's not I'm the leader, I'm the boss, it's everybody working together. And we did that as when I was a federal agent. We all worked together and we did a lot of good things. Identity theft is the #1 crime in the nation. It affects everybody. Terrorism, 9/11, the pilots were using someone else's identity. We're not taking that serious, and we're not protecting our citizens from that. Right now, we talk about saving money. We have to be transparent. Right now, you know, the Affordable Care Act should be just like it is in 6 other states. It should be used for inmates that are not the ones that are convicted already, but the pending inmates. That will save millions of dollars. It's a lot of ongoing issues. Right now I'm looking, you know, when I become the sheriff, is to say, let's hire this certified warden. Let's make sure that this warden is the person that in the federal agreement that this person will be hired. So in turn, we need to save money. We need to look at that. We need to hire qualified people and reduce the price of the consultant fees that we're paying.
Okay. Well, you've all seen, John, you've especially seen how you've done in your first term in this, you know. Let's talk about the last 4 years, what you would have done differently, and Oscar and Richard, why don't you talk about, you know, what you would have done differently if you were in that position, Oscar?
Well, one of the things is that it's been reported that the homicide rate in Gary has been up 30% from last year. And that was under the sheriff's administration. He's been sheriff now for 3.5 years. One of the things that we're doing is not going after the areas that are the problem with high crime and gang problems. What we're doing is using the gang unit as a political tool. We're hitting areas that one of the biggest contributors to the sheriff's campaign is the toll firms. We have way too many toll firms. We have about 13, 14, 15 toll firms, and they all make their money based on tolls. and I know this for a fact because I had officers coming to me complaining that they're hitting certain areas of the county based on toll districts, for they can make their money. And for every toll vehicle, the county gets $50 on that towed vehicle, plus $75 on a toll release. I just had a complaint from somebody from Hammond. This is a vehicle that was had a minor accident in a private parking lot. She didn't have a choice of the toll firm that she wanted to get. The vehicle was towed by department policy. It was towed to a place that she didn't want it, and she didn't have any 24 hours access to get her vehicle released. She had to wait till Monday and pay an extra $180. In my eyes, that's an illegal seizure of somebody's vehicle. The gang unit needs to go out there to investigate gang crimes, gather intelligence, long-term investigations. If you look in the last 3 years, ask the sheriff what major gang has been shut down, what major gang leader has been brought to justice. We need long-term investigations and intelligence. Let the officers do their job.
Okay, Richard?
I've been really studying the Sheriff Department really for the last 8 years. I've had a lot of contact with them when I was a federal agent. We worked cases with them. We would interview people in the jail. A lot of things we would do. I looked at the morale. In the last 2.5 years, I've really talked to a lot of police officers for the county and correctional officers. The morale is low. We know that, but it's very hard to say what we would or would not do. You have to come in and evaluate what are the real problems. Some of the morale problems may be because of their own, because you may have the sheriff in there doing his job and people are being upset. So unless you really know what some of the issues are, it's very hard to say what you're going to do. I will come in and evaluate from what I've learned in the last 2.5, 3 years. We will make sure that the military has a chain of command. The Sheriff Department is a paramilitary organization. You have to have job descriptions for every single person and hold them to it. You have to have goals and objectives at the beginning of the year that you target to make sure that these are being met. You just can't haphazardly do goals and objectives. You have to look at the community, look at the resources, and really establish some good, solid goals and objectives. The chain of command is so important. You can't have a person supervising one person. You have to have, as it's done in the military, one person will supervise 4 to 12 people and make sure that chain of command is very effective. You have to look at the root causes. We can arrest people every day. If we want to arrest 20 people today, we can do it. We can arrest 20 people tomorrow. What are we doing to prevent this? How are we doing solving the deep-rooted problems? It's disturbing to me that everybody contributes gangs and drugs. Well, that is a part of it. But so many of the homicides in Gary, 60%, were domestic related. Me and you get in a fight, 2 years from now, I see you with your family and I shoot you. You know, it didn't have anything to do with gangs. The stress level is so high now that we're looking at gangs and drugs. It is a problem. It's a major problem. 6 years ago, I got together and had a meeting and said, listen, if the drugs are in Porter County and they're getting them from Chicago, we better take a serious look at Lake County because it's going to be here. Now the synthetic and the different type of heroin, they're here now. And now we're trying to react, which we could have prevented. I've attended and helped start a ComStat meeting. The ones I attended is things that we need to do in this area. I attended the ones in Fort Wayne. All the criminals are working together from Detroit, Indianapolis, Gary, Chicago. They've joined hands in Fort Wayne. They're the ones controlling a lot of this. We don't have that type of intelligence. Just to go out and arrest someone and not gain intelligence, and I'm sorry, nothing against the media, you have to wait till I want this big case, because if I arrest you, put it in the paper, I may blow the whole case. I have to have agencies working with me. And what I plan to do is really get the agencies working together, not only in this area in Porter County, but it was mind-boggling to me at this ComStat meeting where I'm hearing names of people in Gary that's connected to the people in Fort Wayne that's bringing it in, how they're bringing it in. So I need to really, I've looked at this, I've looked at the morale, I looked at people are scared to say anything, people don't want to talk to me in public, we have to meet places and talk because they don't want to be punished. These are things that we need to remove politics out of the police, and it should stop at the sheriff. Yes, it's going to be politics, but that sheriff should be able to take the blunt of the heat, but the police officers, the correctional officer, and the civilian employees of over 500 should not have to be punished for anything. So that's my idea of really turning things around and making sure that everybody's happy, the morale, and I'm just hoping that you know, I dealt with workplace violence, and you cannot have people with guns upset. So we need to make sure that we have people happy.
Okay, John?
From day one, January 1 of 11, I've taken a proactive approach to law enforcement. That stance continues. It's easy for people on the outside looking in to try to second guess exactly what's going on. Let's touch on the issue of morale first. I worked for 8 sheriffs, and I learned a lot from those 8 sheriffs. You talk about politics, you talk about getting burned and everything else. That is not occurring on the Sheriff's Department at this time. We put every available police officer on the street. Maybe some of them don't like their assignments, but I don't care. They're on the street where they belong, doing the different duties. There's many facets to the Lake County Sheriff's Department. Let's talk about, my opponents talked about the jail. First of all, we're under a Department of Justice settlement agreement. If there isn't a day goes by that there isn't one monitor in that facility, whether it be medical, mental health, sanitation, whatever, they're there. My warden has to be cleared by the Department of Justice. Let's clarify that. Before I can make my warden a warden, he has to be cleared by the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., which he was. One of my opponents talked about insurance, about the Affordable Care Act and that. We have done everything we can. We started that process already. Maybe they're unaware of that. But let's make it clear that the federal law excludes an incarcerated person from receiving federal Medicare. We're doing everything we possibly can. Let's talk about gangs and drugs. We have done more in working with gangs and drugs with the federal agencies, with the state, and with the local agencies. I completely disagree with the fact about prosecutions. Maybe my opponent next to me doesn't understand about the Imperial Gangsters prosecution with the federal government, the Gangster Disciples, the Latin Kings. We played a major role in that. One of my opponents talked about Homeland Security. Homeland Security, the first thing I did in January of 11 was make certain that I affiliated our agency with the Homeland Security District 1. We train 4 times a year with that agency. We play a major role in that agency with our air unit, with our Marine unit, and our tactical unit. We train with them. I fully realize the situation as far as the dangers that involve in major metropolitan areas such as we have today. You talk about the bullying and human trafficking. We've made major strides in that area. We're not just only talking about it on the internet. I have specifically trained 2 officers to go out and deal with this situation in the schools, talking to educators, talking to parents, talking to students to deal with this problem. Human trafficking, we're dealing with that situation because it's a major issue right now in the community. You have streetwalkers, you have these young ladies that are at these gentlemen clubs. Who are they? Where are they from? There's somebody that misses that individual. We're dealing with that. We're working with the shelters day in and day out, specifically trained officers. Community watch programs, reaching out into the community. We have started more community watch programs than ever before. I'm talking about every community. Urban communities, south part of the county, middle part of the county, we've done that. These are the things. It's easy to throw shots at somebody, but we've done what we're supposed to be doing, a proactive approach. And I take great offense to the fact that I sit behind a desk. Anybody that knows me, I'm on the street, I'm with my officers, I want to know what's going on. I feel very strongly about my profession. I've been a police officer for 41 years. I feel very strongly about that. There's serious issues in this community dealing with health problems. We're dealing with that with our jail. I'll elaborate on that in a little bit if you want me to. But I take great offense to the fact that I don't have a good working relationship with the police agencies in Lake County. I feel I have one of the best working relationships with them, dealing with crime issues, meeting with them constantly, dealing with this 911 consolidation situation. I think all the endorsements I'm receiving from the different police departments are indicative of my camaraderie with my brethren in law enforcement.
As I recall, there's something like 19 different police agencies, in local police agencies in Lake County. One of the ideas that was out of the Good Government report, as I remember, was the suggestion that we have a unified detective bureau that serves the entire county. What do you think of the ideas, Richard?
I think that's a super idea. A lot of people don't want to give up. They think if they give up manpower, they look at it as giving that person up instead of gaining the support of all the other agencies. I had a hard time getting members to my identity theft task force, and once we started working together, then they saw the value, and it was an added value because we actually had everyone working together. Instead of you giving up that one person or two people, you really gained 12 people to work with you because they assisted with other things. To have a unified task force for certain issues, such say the homicides, the shootings in Gary, it's necessary. It is truly necessary to have a unified task force and a prosecutor or assistant U.S. attorney or someone working with that task force to give them the guidance of how to do it and how to prosecute. If you don't have a prosecutor or a U.S. attorney with that task force, it's going to make it difficult because the guidance is not there, the training may not be there. The will is there and the effort of all the agencies working together is good, but you have to tie a prosecutor or a U.S. attorney with that to make sure that they're doing the right thing and working the targeted cases.
Okay, Oscar?
I totally agree with that question there. In the last election, I did talk about creating a multi-jurisdictional gang unit and investigative unit where every department participates in this. So when there's a gang problem or any type of drug problem or issues going on in Crown Point, Dyer, East Chicago, Hammond, sometimes they're all related. Gangs don't just stay in one spot. They're out there recruiting, selling drugs in different areas. And if we work together, we're able to gather that intelligence and able to better prosecute these criminals. I just want to touch a point on the last question and the response of the sheriff. He did say that he does have officers where they're needed, and some officers do not like where they're at. His comment was, "I don't care." That's the problem. He doesn't listen. He doesn't care about the officers' feelings or what their opinions are about the sheriff's department. One of the most important things you have to do as a leader is to listen, to have an open mind, to listen to your subordinates and what's going on. They're the foot soldiers. They know what's going on inside the sheriff's department. And I think that's important, to care about your subordinates and what's going on. Now, it's no secret that I've been transferred from highway interdiction. I was successful in it. I trained other officers in highway interdiction, and they were successful. And we brought in a lot of money and a lot of drugs on off the streets, and money that benefit the sheriff's department. School resource officers. He says they're out there educating on cyber crimes. They're out there just working security. That's all they are. They're not involved in the schools. They're not mentoring inside the schools. They're not reading books to elementary school students. They need to be more involved in the schools instead of just standing around as security officers. That's important. That's the new direction that we need to go into.
John?
Well, first of all, talking about the cooperation with other agencies, we've done that, made considerable strides in that. I have insisted, and we, working with all the agencies, we've assigned a full-time detective from our agency to the Gary Police Department to assist them with homicide investigations. We have officers assigned to the STOP team out of East Chicago, a multi-jurisdictional agency. We continue to increase our efforts with HIDA, both in the agency itself. ATF, DEA, which has proven very productive. The Major Crimes Task Force, we're working with those agencies, with that agency. The Gang Intelligence Unit that we have, we work very closely with Gary Hammond in East Chicago with their gang intelligence. Of course, you can't tell everybody what's going on every day and what's going on, but those officers meet on a monthly basis. We've established a good working relationship with the Cook County Sheriff's Department. Tom Dart's a very good friend of mine, with their gang intelligence unit, because the gangs are coming over from Cook County into Lake County. We know that, causing a problem. Let's talk a little bit about school resource officers. I've placed, for the first time, I've placed a school resource officer in the territory that we have control over, which is the Calumet Township, the Lake Ridge school system. It has been nothing but productive. The gentleman to my left here, I put him in that position at first, all right? There was failure to show up. There was failure to make proper reports. One report which culminated his being transferred was the fact that he failed to make a report on an incident where it resulted in a drive-by shooting at a residence. So that's documented. The interdiction aspect of it, we continue to. I've even increased the amount of officers in the drug interdiction unit. We are right now, probably last year was over $3 million in seizures, which can be documented. What you do is you don't confiscate drugs. You work to develop cases more. You just don't stand there and take pictures with drugs. You make sure that you develop that intelligence, and that's exactly what we're doing. Officers, again, I go back to the fact, you cannot make every officer happy. There's positions that some are good positions, some are positions that officers think are not up to their ability in that. But somebody has to perform these duties day in and day out. That's a part of law enforcement. I did that when I was growing up in law enforcement. Hey, you have to bite the bullet sometime and you have to do it. You got to put that uniform on sometime. Maybe you're in plain clothes sometime, but you got to do that job. That's what you're paid for to do. Serve and protect.
Okay.
Just talking about equipment, what are the needs of the department in terms of vehicles, officer equipment, arms? Are the needs currently being met? And in the time of limited resources, where do you think things should be resources should be shifted? Sheriff.
We constantly upgrading the equipment on the department. I'm very proud of the fact that we have what I feel the most state-of-the-art equipment. Both vehicles, we're constantly upgrading that every year. Firearms, technical equipment. We've come into the computer age. I've increased the amount of intelligence work we do with computer systems. We've established a central intelligence division, one of the first of any local department in the county. We're very proud of that, developing intelligence. We network with other agencies. We send out bulletins daily to all these agencies. As far as in corrections also, we send out bulletins that we get. So we're meeting that. We're progressing each and every day. We have an IT department that I'm very proud of, and I'm again, we have the equipment. If you don't have a well-equipped department, officer safety is first and foremost. That is the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. And that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish. Officer safety, the best equipment, make the job safer for the officers and more efficient.
Let them answer.
Sure.
And then we can.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
All right. Absolutely. Well, we had cars that we ordered in November. They've been sitting in the parking lot collecting dust, snow. It took several months to get those cars out on the roads. We have an e-ticket system where instead of running data, the entire data on the driver's license, you just swipe it like a credit card, and you're able to get that information faster. It's more effective, efficient. Get the officer out on the road faster. That has now been. We're just now providing that for all the officers. Tasers. I used to have a taser, but that was taken away from me for it can be given to another officers. We don't have enough tasers in our department, and that reduces injuries to officers instead of getting into a physical confrontation. That was news to me what the sheriff just said in reference to not filing a report, a drive-by shooting. Those are serious, serious allegations. I've never been disciplined. I've never been written up. I've never been suspended for anything of that nature. This is the first I've heard of it. It's kind of sad and pathetic that he's going to bring up something like this, and it's never been brought to my attention. That's unacceptable. Someone like that should be brought up in front of the merit board. These are serious charges that he just made right now. I can't believe he said something like that. That's never been brought up. No documentation of any write-up, no verbal reprimand, no disciplinary actions, nothing. In fact, the school was upset that I was being pulled out of there. It's all smoke and mirrors. That's what it's all about. Taking pictures in front of drugs. Why would you knock an officer for doing this job? And that's something that he's proud of. Large amount of drugs that there were pictures taken. But remember, the media is called by the sheriff. When we make a drug bust or anything large, a press conference, that's called by the sheriff. All the drugs are displayed. Pictures are being taken. Now he wants to throw that in my face, but yet he's in front of the media recently with drugs all over. I don't take pictures with drugs. That's exactly what he's doing now. Using the resources of the county, using taxpayers' money to put on a big show on CBS. I don't leave behind a desk. Look at me, I'm out here. Helicopters flying over. Now, during election time, you're starting to see that. One thing that my narcotics officers will always tell you is that I was notorious for taking, after the arrest, taking it a step further, controlled deliveries. We've gone to Michigan. We've gone to the state of Michigan, to Lafayette, to Chicago, to make controlled deliveries, to have the person cooperate and take the investigation further where we can make further drug busts.
If I may comment, I think I'm not sitting here getting upset, but I'm sitting here in a position where I respect the sheriff, I respect the other candidate, and I don't think we should be attacking each other. I think that, I'm sorry, I'm a military guy, I'm a federal agent, retired, and I think the issues are that a police department should get along. And when I worked in Chicago, that's what we did. We got along. And there were confusion, just like it is here, which I object to, because it's just, to me, we have to be professional, okay? And to me, I feel almost offended. The question was asked about equipment, and we're attacking each other. That should not be. As a brigade commander, commanding all these soldiers that had violence on their heart because they were deployed, 900 soldiers deployed, you go down to that bottom man and you ask, what do you need? What do you want? You communicate at that level. You communicate successfully. Now, you're the boss. If you're the sheriff, you're the boss. You make the decision whether people like it or not. But at least you are communicating. So I don't like to feel the animosity. I don't like to feel the negativity. You know, we started talking about equipment. And the only way we will know what equipment is needed to go down to that level and find out what's needed. As a sheriff or as a police officer, you know what's needed. And that should come up. And maybe I'm spoiled on the federal level because if you need something, you get it. And I always know that the federal level helps the local levels. And if I gave Gary Police at one time, we sold them 3 cars for $1 a piece, 36,000 miles, 3 years. So as far as the equipment, what I see, you got some old raggedy cars out there, yes. But I'm not taking sides about anything, but that's the sheriff's call, whether he feels like there needs to be equipment updated. You know, that's his call. But he's to do that research, and his people will tell him what he needs. But the negativity, I think we're kind of getting off base, and to me, we need full cooperation. How can law enforcement people not get along? And this is my point. Even at, yes, I know that there's county police that don't get along with others, but that's the sheriff's decision to make that. If you don't like him, so be it. If you like him, fine. To me, we have to look at what that person needs, and that's accountability of equipment. And the government is begging to give equipment. The military just gave Lafayette a $600,000 vehicle with 12,000 miles. I'm working on getting that in this area. We have miles and miles of equipment lined up in Iraq right now that they're trying to decide whether to send it back to the state or give it to the Iraqis. So we're trying to get that equipment back where they're not going to sell it to you and they're not going to give it to you. I had the opportunity, 150 brand new night vision goggles, and couldn't get someone to write a letter. And there's no one in here, but couldn't get a department just to write a letter on their letterhead to receive that equipment. So there is so much equipment out there, we need to make sure that every officer out there has the job he needs. You know, going out, checking. Why should you have a 5-year-old vest on? Okay? You need to make sure. The military will give you stuff like that because they don't want the military don't want the heavy stuff, so they're going to give you that heavy stuff. But at least you're covered. So I say that as far as equipment, I think there's more equipment can be given. I think it's just the communication, everybody getting along, that equipment will be provided.
Yeah, I have a follow-up equipment question, but not the same kind of equipment question. Sheriff, one of the problems with incumbency is you know more, and so you get asked more questions. So this one fits in that category. Take-home cars have been very controversial. I was in a meeting last night with mayors where that topic came up. Most mayors have take-home cars. Police typically have take-home cars. Mm-hmm. But the question is, what's your policy, or what? And maybe it's changed. What's the policy of the Sheriff's Department with respect to the personal use of those cars, which everybody does, but do they pay for that personal use? Do they pay taxes on that personal use? What's the policy of the Sheriff's Department?
We have a take-home policy. It's only for merit personnel. They're the only ones allowed for take-home vehicles. That's very closely monitored. We have general orders that make certain that they provide that they are adhering to the policy of where the vehicles can be driven, what areas they can be driven in off duty, as far as who they could have in their vehicle off duty. That's closely monitored. We keep a very close eye on that at all times.
Well, my question has to do with money. Some departments, I can't tell you which ones, but I do know there are policies like this. Some departments will charge their officer $3 a day, I've seen that somewhere, $3 a day to sort of defray the cost of the personal use of the vehicle because they take it home. There's also an obligation, and one of the mayors said this very clearly last night, for his take-home car, I have to pay tax, I have to pay income tax on the amount of miles that I use my business vehicle for personal use. And I had a take-home car when I was president of Canada College, and I know I had to do that too. So my question is, do the persons who have police vehicles that they take home, are they paying taxes on the personal use of those vehicles? Because there is personal use.
To my knowledge, no, they're not. But let's go back. You know, I sat through meeting after meeting, seminars, and everything else with law enforcement, public officials, discussing this issue of take-home vehicles. Take-home vehicles by law enforcement personnel is a known deterrent to crime. When you have a vehicle like that in your neighborhood, the response time is better if somebody's in need, plus that visibility of that vehicle. These officers, again, are strictly, they have to adhere to the policy. The other thing is the take-home vehicles lead to better maintenance of the vehicles. It's a known fact that when one officer drives that car, instead of 3 officers day in and day out driving that car, you're going to tear that vehicle up. So that in itself saves a lot of money. So overall, it's cost savings to the taxpayers.
Can I comment? On the federal level, there was a policy, and if you abused it, it's a minimum of 30 days on the street. So the idea of a take-home car for local police is great, just like the sheriff said. It's a deterrent. If you see that police car in the neighborhood, it's definitely a deterrent. Plus, it's an incentive, too, because they don't make much money. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, the salary is so low, you know, and they take the job to be a police, so they know it's going to be low. But it's a benefit. It's a perk. Now, if it's being misused, that's a different situation. But to me, to see police cars riding around with the whole family in the car and stuff. I kind of disagree with that, because you can't or should not respond when you have your family in the car with you. And if I could not have a family member in my car, and if I did and get caught, I'm in trouble. So from the county level, you know, if you're a police officer, if you're sworn and you are in a response mode, you should have a car. And whether, I think it would be unfair to make that police officer pay extra or do anything, because to me, he or she is responding once they get in that car. Now they have a system, the Spellman system, they are part of that tracks everywhere that vehicle is. And that sheriff or chief of police can sit in his office and know everywhere that car is located. And it's an expense, but it's a good expense, because that can keep that off. If someone accused that person of something, you know, it may be an issue. But I would say that the take-home policy, you know, it definitely outweighs the financial burden, because that officer's not making that much money, and that most officers are dedicated and will respond.
And you do see that out there with the take-home car policy. One of the policies and procedures, when you're in your take-home vehicle off-duty, you have to have your radio on. You got to listen to what's going on out there. So if you happen to be in the area, if there's an incident that occurs, you could be the first officer there. Also assist in traffic control if there's an accident. But one thing that we can do and look at it is that when you're off duty, if you need fuel in that car, you should put it in yourself. Go to the gas station, fuel up your car. You're using it for personal use, instead of going to the county government and filling up your vehicle, you know, all the way to the top, because you're using it. You're off the next 2 days, and you're going to use that vehicle every day. If you're off and you're going to use that vehicle for personal use, I have no problems, and I think it's a great idea to officers to pay themselves to fuel up that vehicle while they're off duty.
Thank you.
Okay.
The two of you that are seeking the office or haven't held it, tell me your first week in office. What are you going to do that's different? What has to be done? Then I'm going to come back and ask the sheriff.
Well, it's very hard as an outsider not to come in and make mass changes or make changes would be ridiculous. You'd have to come in, and it would take more than a week. First week, I would hope that the outgoing sheriff and the incoming sheriff could talk and make sure that there's a smooth transition. Don't start changing people. Don't start changing that chief or deputy chief or commander. You know, find out what's going on. Eventually, you may have to do that, but to come into now, I know a lot about the sheriff department. When I worked as a Fed, I would go in, I worked with them, I worked with detectives, I rode with some of them in cars. So to me, it's very important that if you're going to start making changes the first week, I think it's unacceptable. I think unless you come in, evaluate, look at the paperwork, look at the budget, look at the chain of command, look at equipment, and really for that first 90 days, you should be concerned with accountability of equipment, personnel, and finances. Those are things that you really have to take a look at. To make changes in the first week, you may break something that's already working. So you want to make sure that things that are working, and there's a lot of good things we know have been done. There's no doubt about that. So why come in and change it, you know?
So in essence, what you're saying is, coming in the first week, you begin assessing things.
Exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely. One of the things, like I said, I'm going to eliminate politics out of the sheriff's department. No political retribution. If the officers are happy in what they're doing and they're doing their job right, that makes the organization run better, and it benefits the community. One thing that we've always talked about is the jail, the jail, the jail. It's a federal mandate that we have to bring the jail up to par. But one thing we keep missing and nobody has mentioned is the correctional officers. The correctional officers' pay rate is 33% below the cost of living. They haven't received a pay raise in over 10 years. They look at it as a dead-end job. There's no advancement. A 20-year veteran in the correctional division will make the same amount of money as a new correctional officer coming into the job. There's no incentives. There's no career advancement there. I'm going to change all that.
So that's something you would work on.
Absolutely, because if you want a quality service, you got to have quality pay and quality training. And we're neglecting our correctional officers. Everybody talks about the jail and the deficiencies, but nobody has looked at the correctional officers as a whole. It's sad that I have correctional officers coming up to me saying they don't know what they're going to do for Christmas this year because they're not getting paid enough. They're just above the poverty line. That's something that we have to look at and take some serious action. Because if you don't, lack of training, low quality of work because of their pay could bring out litigations and lawsuits, and it creates a bigger mess.
Sheriff, as you said, you've been in a number of years. If you're to be reelected, what is the one thing that you haven't done that you think you would want to try and work going forward?
First of all, I want to accomplish to get out from under the Department of Justice Settlement Agreement. I want to make certain that the 911 consolidation is completed. We're not going to be on time. We probably be a few months behind, but I want to see that in place. It's very important that for public safety, that be accomplished. Let me go back to the fact of when I took office, January 1 of 11. I walked into an office. My predecessor did have nothing to do with me. He threw some keys on the desk. None of the keys fit any doors. I walked into the jail that first day with my legal advisor and my chief. The smell of the jail literally gagged us. The conditions of the department, the armory itself, everybody had keys. We didn't know who had keys. We had to secure that area, and of course the corruption that followed that was indicative of what happened. Let me just clarify some things about the jail. The jail is the first and foremost responsibility of a sheriff under the Constitution of the state of Indiana. I worked in that jail. I designed a new jail, the west wing of the jail. My opponents, one has never stepped foot in the Lake County Jail. The other one has never gotten further than the booking counter of the Lake County Jail. I am in that jail each and every day, and that is not a fallacy. I am in that jail every day, or I am in some part of that building, having to work again. Monitors are there every day. This ridiculous settlement agreement that we're under right now is costing this county and these taxpayers, this county, a ridiculous amount of money. Lawsuits, lawsuits, lawsuits. We settled one already for $8 million, and the tab's going to be $9.5 million after we pay the interest on that bond. We've got another one pending right now that's going to be a ridiculous amount of money if they don't settle it soon. Let's talk about corrections officers. I have upgraded and it's been substantiated by the Department of Justice the training. We have more training for the corrections officers than ever before. We had the Department of Justice representative even made a comment last time that this is becoming a model jail for the state of Indiana. We are lending our resources to other counties as far as training of corrections officers is concerned. Let's talk about the pay issue for corrections officers. The Lake County corrections officers have not received a pay raise since I left office in 2002. They received a pay raise this year. First thing I did was I meet with the union leadership of that organization. I gave them a contract in 1999, the first in the state of Indiana for county corrections officers. I am a very strong proponent of organized labor, the right to bargain freely. When I began negotiations last year, 2 years ago, first thing I told the county council and the commissioners who control the purse strings, I said, I want raises for these officers. We were successful this year. I made cuts in my budget over the last 2 years in certain areas to make certain that these officers can get that. I've developed a program now with them. I've had a meeting with them as recently as 10 days ago, the leadership of the union. I want to develop a program. I want them at the table with me early on in May when the budget negotiations start so we can make certain that they get a piece of the pie. I just want to clarify one other thing that was made about protective vests for the officers. I have, again, safety, safety, safety. We have a routine in our training division that every officer, for 5 years, when those vests are timed out, or 6 years, automatically they get new vests. Let's talk about this, clarify something about the towing firms. The issue was made that I have 15 towing firms. I don't have 15 towing firms. I have 8. 8. 2 are on standby for special operations, okay? Let's talk about the charges for the towing, okay? Those charges aren't set up by John Buncich or the sheriff. Those charges were set up by ordinance by the Lake County Council and the Board of Commissioners. I have to answer to the Board of Commissioners and to the County Council. That's the administrative part of this position, of this job. Again, I go back to the fact, it's a big operation, $28 million a year operation. That's bigger than most cities and towns a lot of mayors in this county have to work with. It's a huge undertaking. It's an administrative position as far as, and as well as a law enforcement position. So, and I take this job very seriously.
Okay. We have the public safety income tax coming in. You know, maybe as a final question, let's ask, what would you do with this money that goes to the Sheriff's Department?
We already earmarked a lot of those dollars again for pay increases for the officers, upgraded equipment, the vehicles that we're purchasing. These are the areas that we need to do this. A lot of it's going into the, I'll be honest with you, it's going into the jail operations to upgrade those issues. That's where this money is going into. You know, as far as the vehicles that we purchase being parked for a long period of time, you know why they're parked there a long period of time? Because you can't just put a car on the street without a radio or red lights or something, or blue lights, red and blues. You have to equip those vehicles. And again, I go back to the fact that the commissioners and the council, we had to wait for the proper appropriation to get the money to equip these vehicles. I'm not going to put an officer in a Dodge or a Ford without lights and radio equipment. So this, again, going back to the tax issue, I welcome it. I really do welcome it, because now it opens the door for more opportunity for us to progress further with law enforcement as a whole.
Oscar?
Most importantly, it's equipment. Equipment, training, and pay increase. But one of the other things is giving back also to the community, using some of that money for community outreach to help pay for a junior police academy, a mentoring program, a citizens academy, giving back to the community. You know, some people were not happy because of the county income tax, but you know what? It does help county entities. It does help law enforcement, and I think by using it for community outreach is also giving back to the community.
Yeah, my feeling's the same, and that's you have to upgrade the pay scale of the police officers and the correctional officers. Community outreach, that's been my thing. You can arrest people every day. You can fill up a jail, but invest some of that money into the community with worthwhile programs that's going to prevent it. And it's not just talking; it's actually programs. And you know, one I was speaking of just as every town in this area has a Pop Warner football league. Make sure you unite those areas with either football or some type of youth program. You're talking about probably hundreds of thousands of parents and young people just to have them all together, working together as a community. It's going to break down territorial barriers. You know, when I look at extra funds, we definitely needed to break down territorial barriers where it would eventually eliminate some of the gangs. You know, we still have athletes that are good friends that live on the west side and the east side. Some of them wear the red shirts, some of them wear the blue hats. And, you know, the money has to be proven to the community that it's going to be worthwhile and it's going to be utilized for the proper resources. Equipment is very important. So there's three things that I echo the sentiments of the other two. And that's upgrade the pay scale of the workers. You know, some of them are just working, barely making it, and making sure that the equipment is operational. And I agree, you don't put a person in a uniform or without a uniform on the street without the proper equipment. So if it's a matter of time, you just have to wait until you get it. The community outreach, and those are the three things I keep harping on, because you know, public safety is preventing crime. If you can prevent that now, that's what you need to do. The training is so important. You know, a lot of times we want to send people away to training. Use that public safety to bring people in. Instead of me sending you to Florida in January for a week and a half, I'll bring that person here to train 30 people instead of, you know, and save a lot of money doing it. But we just want to be frugal with the spending and make sure that the money is being spent properly.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. This has been an endorsement interview with the Democratic candidates for Lake County Sheriff. Thank you for viewing.